Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fieros with Tri-City Equity Group. Today, we have DeAnna Lee on the show. DeAnna is a short-term rental investor and the founder of Destination Dream Homes. She's passionate about design, travel, and the guest experience. After starting her investing career as a single mom, she now has a sizable portfolio, including multiple properties in various international locations. DeAnna, welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
Yeah, no, excited to have you on. Like I said, I think just as we were talking a little bit off camera, I think your story and just for one, inspirational. I want to own international property, and even though I live thousands of miles away from the mainland, being based in Hawaii, it's still not international. So I definitely want to touch on that. But kind of before we get started with that, I'd love to hear a little bit about, hey, what's your background, and especially for our listeners that may not be familiar with you or any of your work, any of your projects. How'd you get started? Like, tell us a little bit about your journey into the exciting world of real estate investing.
The exciting world of real estate investing. Yes, exactly. Actually, I feel like I've been in real estate my entire life. We were house hacking before it was a thing. My dad would build a home, we'd move into it, he'd put it up for sale, then he'd build the next home, we'd move into it, put it up for sale. So we've been doing that my whole life. I always knew that at some point I would own rental properties, but I didn't realize that I would be able to combine my love for travel and the real estate investing and all of that together. So that's pretty cool. The first home I ever bought, I was a single mom, as you mentioned, and I bought a duplex. So it came with a tenant, which helped me pay for the other half of my mortgage. So that was really great. And just starting from there, we loved it and started to realize that we could really supplement our income with this and ultimately do anything that we wanted with the real estate investing. So that's how I got started. And then really one of the long-term, I was only doing long-term rentals and one of them flooded. And at that point, my husband said, maybe you should try that Airbnb thing you keep talking about. And I was like, oh, perfect opportunity. So that was one where it was like, oh, it could have been a disaster. And it turned out to be my very first vacation rental. And we've just gone from there.
Oh, that's awesome. I've got a couple of things that I want to touch on there. For one, the value of, I think, being shown, even if you're not like your dad, you were saying your dad kind of showed you, okay, hey, look, we're going to fix kind of this up. We're going to improve a property, even if it's just a house that you live in, we're going to create some value. And, of course, once we go later to sell this thing, it's going to be worth more. And we're going to continue to do that. That's an awesome kind of a live and flip type of setup. And so I think that's huge. I mean, for a lot of people, I think don't overlook kind of those humble beginnings, right? Like, well, all I have is my house. Well, yeah, but there's value that you can add, that you can improve to even the place that you're living at. So that's great. And then two, I think that next step that you took, like as that property on your own, to me, that is massive. I think for most people looking to get started into real estate investing, doing a house hack with a duplex, massive. I cannot stress that enough to you guys as our listeners. If you're looking for a way to get started where you're not having, well, I don't have the money to do, okay, well, can you go find a property like that has, that DeAnna found, that's either a duplex or like here in Hawaii, we have multi-generational, which is super common, or you might have, different states, different locations, it's called something else, right? A granny flat, a mother-in-law suite, just some kind of extra additional rentable space on your property. Now you started off with the long-term tenant, and what a great way to take something that would have been, something disastrous for most people, right? You could have easily just said, you know what, I'm going to take the insurance money. We're going to sell this thing. I don't even care about what we do with this, and just kind of, I'm going to wash my hands of this. But, you saw it as an opportunity. And honestly, that's huge. I mean, like, tell me that wasn't life-changing, game-changing,
it really was. And that one, so. Exactly. To touch on that, really, I always tell my kids, my assistant, anyone in their 20s, and really at any age, but really if I can catch them when they're young, I always say your first home is not your dream home. Buy a duplex, buy a fourplex, because you can get in there with the lowest down payment possible. You don't have to come in with the 20-25% down. It would take me a lifetime to save that up, really, even now. And so being able to come in with that and have, your second or your third home can be your dream home, but really to start with that and have that passive income coming in and helping support you in the goals of the home ownership. So, and owning rental properties. And then, that flood was it was two things. It also opened up my eyes to the possibilities of being able to do things remotely, because even though this rental was, 20 minutes from my home, when it flooded, we were in Florida. So we were across the country when this happened, and we were still able to take care of everything and get it handled, get it cleaned up, and convert it to that vacation rental. And so that's when I realized that, we have no borders. It's not easy, but it's quite possible to do things remotely. You don't have to do it in your own hometown.
No, I love that. And I love that no borders. Like we hear that maybe in the kind of other arenas, like, in terms of like your thoughts, right? Like, okay, hey, no borders to limits, or limitations or whatever, or the limits to your success kind of deal. But I love that for investing. I run into that a lot here. Like, I know you're visiting Hawaii right now and you've got property out here too. But I see that pretty frequently. And I actually feel like no matter where that I've been, I've networked and invested all over the country. And I feel like I've heard that excuse, I guess, countless times where it's like, wow, that's too far. That's the next state over. That's the next city over. I can't, I can't go buy that. Like I need to touch it. I need to see it. And it's like, if it doesn't make sense to where you're at, don't limit yourself. Like maybe you're in another market that's like that. If you're buying in Florida, hey, you know what? Florida's been booming, like Texas has been booming, but you don't live in those states. That's okay. Like there's solutions for that. DeAnna's a perfect example of, being able to do this at a distance. And you've got other stuff going on, even under, circumstances that aren't ideal, right? You're dealing with a flood. So it's like, okay, hey, we got to handle problems, right? And at a distance. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what it boils down to. You handle problems, right? Solve problems. You provide
exactly.
Value.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to think about being able to do things remotely, because a lot of excuses I hear when networking is, it's too expensive in my hometown. Well, then don't stay in your hometown. There's definitely lots of options. And I must say that managing things remotely, the operations team is key. Like my cleaners, my cleaning team, I call them turnover pros. My turnover pros are my lifeblood of my company. I couldn't do it without them. And I don't have just one. I have one in every single location, one entire team. And so setting that up, building that foundation is really what's key in being able to manage these places remotely.
No, that's awesome. So even just to kind of dive into that a little bit, do you have any tips for, our other fellow short-term rental operators that may be listening, in any tips like to hire into building that, your turnover pros? I actually like that, to building out like that team. I've heard that called different things, but I do like that. Any tips to doing that? I mean, and you've done it multiple times over in all these different locations. So surely you've learned some lessons along the way.
Yes, I have learned some lessons along the way, and I do have some tips and tricks there. It's different everywhere I go. So I am always learning, and I'm sure the next time, my next project's also in another country, so it'll be different there as well. But when I started in Hawaii, Angie's List has been my best friend. That one is really, really great for finding cleaners and finding handymen and finding all of those teams that you need. Another thing that is so important is to have a backup for your backup for your backup. And that's with everything. I say that with supplies. I say that with cleaners. I say that with everyone, because people get sick, right? I have a cleaner in Mexico who had to have eye surgery, and she's out for a month. Oh my goodness. But we actually have 2 backup cleaners. So that way they can support each other. They're all on the same team. They can cover each other. So really just having those backups and knowing that your bases are covered, because life happens, things change, and sometimes people don't work out. So rather than finding yourself in a bind, it's best to just have your bases covered with that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's like a business principle for sure. I think even more, anytime you're dealing with people, I've found like you always have to account for the unaccountable. There's always
exactly.
variables.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something else that just popped into my head was when I was here looking for cleaners in Hawaii, I actually, and this costs money. Like, don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money to hire the best team. In fact, I think I interviewed 10 cleaners. I had 4 different cleaners come and clean. So my place was super clean the time that I was staying here because I had them come and clean. And I would just, leave little things hidden to see if they would clean them and catch them. And I was able to really choose the best cleaner from that. And it actually went both ways. Some cleaners said they didn't want to clean for me, which is always, because I do a lot. I leave a lot of gift baskets, a lot of amenities, a lot of extra things, and some cleaners are like, yeah, no way, this is way too much, like I don't want to do that. And so it was really good to have those expectations set before you've actually hired them, to say, this is what it's going to be like, is this what you want to do? Because I want them to be happy, I want them to be with me for the long term. So having them actually do a clean, having them actually do the job before they're hired is important.
Yeah, you're level setting. I mean, that's an expectation thing. Like, hey, I want to make this a long-term thing. Like, your goal, of course, is to operate that thing, especially if it's profitable, like indefinitely, right? So this is going to be a long-term relationship. We need to have a good understanding, a good working relationship here. You need to be on board with what the plan is, right? Talking about your cleaners and your handyman and whoever, the rest of your team, right? So no, that's actually really good. I like that. I don't know that I've ever actually tied that many. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't normally do that many. That's just how many it took here. That just, some places only take 1 or 2, some take a little more. So, but that's, I mean, my cleaning team, my turnover pros, they're family. And I really, I'm going down to Mexico to a wedding, right? I got invited to their wedding. I get to see that.
awesome.
And one of the reasons why I do this, it wasn't one of the reasons why I started, but it has, naturally evolved to, it is definitely now one of my top reasons why I do this, is that I'm able to, not me personally, but the entire business is able to provide something beautiful for these families too, right? My maintenance team in Mexico that's getting married, they are actually building a home, and my other cleaner down there is buying land. So they're able to have their dreams of home ownership and land ownership realized, where before that never would have been a possibility for them. So things like that is pretty cool too.
No, that's awesome. And like, that's the thing. I think sometimes, like, investors, right, we can be kind of demonized for the people who just don't understand, like, the investing side, or really just being a business owner. But it's like, hey, look, you're providing value to the local community, right? Like, we're creating jobs when we're doing that. And like that family can now buy, afford to be able to buy a home because they have stability, because you're being a good operator, right? Like, somebody's waiting for you to take advantage of an opportunity and move forward, right? Like, we don't know who that is, right? And it's probably a whole, slew of people, but people are waiting on that, right? Whether we kind of understand that or not. I think that's always something important to remember as business owners. So no, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So kind of talking a little bit about that too, like, I want to pivot a little bit. I want to learn more about, like, your international experience. Like, how did that even start? Like, I mean, I get the buying at a distance here, right? If you're across the country and you're buying in Hawaii, hey, all right, like, I'm obviously comfortable buying, like, thousands of miles away. But then another jump is the international piece, because now, hey, maybe we've got different laws, we've got different ways to go about buying the property. Can we get loans? Like, how does all that work? Like, tell me about kind of how you transition to buying out of the country.
Yeah. So long story, probably long, not short, but anyway, I've always had a dream to own a home on the cliffs by the sea. And that dream started here, actually, in Hawaii, which is why it's so serendipitous that we are back here in Hawaii doing this podcast. So when I was 17, I moved to Hawaii and fell in love. I'm from Provo, Utah, and never seen the ocean, but I just, one day, 17, I'm like, I'm out. And I chose Maui. So I moved to Maui and just fell in love with Hawaii. And so I've always had that dream since then, to own a home on the cliffs by the sea. And that has been an ongoing mantra in my mind for, I don't want to age myself, but for 25 years. And so I always say there's no bad goals just bad deadlines. So it can all happen through patience and setting intentions and being grateful. And so having that, I joined a mentorship program. Side note, I always recommend get a mentor, get a coach. They have bigger vision. They can see what you can't see. We might be very myopic. I remember saying, oh, I want this home on the cliffs by the sea. And to me, it was in Maui, and it was that $24 million property that was never going to be possible in my mind. And so, being a part of this mentorship program that I was in, they introduced me to, well, first of all, they said, well, how much passive income do you have? And I said, well, I have about $1,500 a month right now in passive income. And they said, well, you could just go right now and live in Belize and buy a place and retire and be done right now. And when they said that, I had that realization like, oh, wow, that is cool. And then I thought, well, wait, I'm not done, right? Like I wasn't ready to just pull the plug and go and live on the beach and do nothing. As you know, being a creative, for some reason, we can't stop, right? And so just the one would not have been enough. So once I realized that the dream could already be realized, then I was able to start thinking more expansively. And in this group, being in a mentorship, being in a mastermind, you are introduced to the most amazing people, right? Networking and just meeting these people. And one of the people there introduced me to a group called International Living. I went to an International Living conference, and then I found this group called Real Estate Trend Alert, and they alert me on deals in other countries, right? One just came across my desk 2 days ago about Portugal. So that's when I discovered, actually I went to Nicaragua first. I thought that's where it was going to be. But then when I went, it didn't work out that way. And then we went to Mexico. And now I thought, I bought the first one in Mexico, and then I just didn't stop. And now we have 7. So that worked well because, yes, you're right. You mentioned the financing. Financing in other countries is difficult, right? It's basically cash. You got to pay cash. And so, or I think Mexico financing was like 12 or 14%. I didn't even go down that road because these were new construction. It was a little bit, the first one was the scariest. The rest of them have not been scary at all. But the first one I purchased, it wasn't built. Right. It's in Mexico. And of course, all of your friends and family are chirping at you like, this is not a good idea. Right? But you just go for it anyway. So we pulled the trigger. We went for it. And that one worked because that was, that one did require the 20% down. And then I did benchmark payments. Right. I said, well, paying you the full amount until I know you're doing it. So as they got to a certain point, 6 months in, how much have you done? All right, here's another 10%. Here's another 10%. Then I'll give you the last 10% upon delivery. And they did 50% developer financing because I always want to use leverage. If there's any opportunity to use leverage to have, which is any sort of financing, right? So that you're not using your own liquidity. I like to stay liquid so we can buy the next opportunity. So anytime you have a chance to take advantage of any sort of financing, leverage, that's definitely recommended. So that's how we did it. It was 50% of our own money and 50% developer financing. We have 7 of those in Mexico. We're actually, I just got the contract written up today for one in the Dominican Republic. So we'll talk about that maybe towards the end of this call, but that's how we got started.
Oh, that's great. I mean, and there's a couple of different things there too, right? Like, for one, you're just talking about the leverage. I can't stress to our listeners how important it is. I kind of follow like macroeconomics quite a bit, right? And I think anybody who's been paying attention at all the last few years with COVID and all of the money printing, you have to see like, okay, there is inflation that's happening, which is really a devaluation of the currency, guys. So you want to be in hard assets. So eventually what ends up happening is you can take on debt now, let's say for however many years, in the US, of course, like most people are familiar with a 30-year mortgage. You're locking in that debt at that 30-year fixed rate, but that's going to be paid off with future dollars by somebody else for one, but also devalued dollars. So lock in, use the leverage. Don't tie up all your cash now because it's going to have the most value right now. So utilize leverage. And I get it. Some people, Dave Ramsey fan, knock against Dave Ramsey. Everybody's there's a season and a time and a place for everything. Yeah. But once you're in a place where you can you're stable and you can kind of do things and you understand the business, right? You know that you can grow, you can trust yourself, you can trust your finances. I highly recommend using leverage, not to be over leveraged, of course, like you want to strike a good balance, but I think it's right now is a great time to understand what's happening. Something else you mentioned there too with the mastermind, right? Like, and that's how we're connected, right? Just from similar groups, right? And do short-term rentals. But I think it's so important. You mentioned earlier too, buying in Mexico, right? You had your family and your friends. Don't do that. That's so dangerous, right? You can't do that. How can you make money? There's, it's just drug cartels and, like you hear the horror stories or whatever, right? And so if that's all that you're surrounding yourself with, and that's the only lessons that you can glean from is by people who are saying, no. But do they have the life that you want? Right. And so
exactly. Yeah. You would never do anything. You would never do anything if you listen to, friends and family all the time. And what's funny is that when you're getting started in things like that and they're poo-pooing it and telling you all the ways it could go wrong, and they're only just trying to protect us from ourselves, right? Because creative people scare conventional people. Really. But then once you're there, they're like, oh my goodness, I want to do what you're doing. And so it kind of goes full circle there. Mm-hmm.
We're trailblazers, I guess, in that regard. Somebody's got to do it first. And so, but then this is where the importance of having people that are where you want to go or have that same kind of mindset, right? Like if you're surrounded by people who are like, I think that's a great idea. I've underwrote that market before too. I believe in those deals. Yes. Or somebody else that has success in that market. Great. You're only going to find that by seeking out people who are where you want to go, right? So that can give you that encouragement. So this is why it's important. I used to not believe in, why would you pay for, education? Why would you pay for these masterminds and these groups? Like they're just trying to take your money. It's like, no, like I'm paying to be in the room with other successful people who are wanting to, who are where I want to go and who are going to encourage me to do, better things. So
exactly like it's so true. And it's like they say, you can watch all these podcasts. I love your podcast. You can watch the podcast and the YouTube and you can pick and choose and piece it all together and think you got it all figured out. But it's the same thing as skiing, right? You can learn to ski by yourself by falling down the hill, or you could get an instructor that shows you how to do it so that you have less bumps and bruises along the road.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I firmly believe in that now. So for those of you guys that are on the fence about, paying for some education or, a class or a mastermind, go do it, go do it. You'll get, you're going to get more than you anticipate from it for sure. Yep. Well, so you mentioned you got something else coming. Do you just inked a new deal in the DR? What do you have going on there? Is this development? Is this existing kind of construction? Like what's if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, we can talk about the things that I have going on. So maybe I'll just give you an overview of what I have and what I'm creating. So it's crazy. It's also that the belief of what's possible, right? So I had the first deal and then I had the 3 and then I had the 7 in Mexico. So we have 13 deals right now. And then a project that we're starting, we've got 2 things going on right now. So actually we're doing a 7-unit glamp site in southern Utah, halfway between Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon. So that's getting put together this summer. So we just closed on that land actually while we were here. So I love closing on land in Hawaii. It happens all the time. I love it. So we just closed on 123 acres in southern Utah where the glamping community will be put in this summer. And then, but the one that not just came across my desk, today we got the contract for it, so I can talk about it. Where we've been looking at this since February. It's been in the works. There is a wellness retreat on the cliffs by the sea. If you guys remember my dream, it's happening. So this is something where, yes, we're putting together. It is a full resort. It has 16 villas. They're these beautiful little studios with, a full bathroom and panoramic ocean views it's up on the hill overlooking the jungle. It has, panoramic ocean views. You can see the whales during whale season breaching from your bed, just amazing views. It has a pool, it has a restaurant, it has it has a spa. It comes with an on-site caretaker. It comes with the full management team. It's got, beautiful grounds and just 10 minutes from the most beautiful secluded beaches you've ever seen. I believe that it's along the path of progress. So it's in Dominican Republic, but it's not in the really busy Punta Sur area. I like to follow the path of progress where I think that it's going. So it is, that starts in Punta Sur. What is it called? I can't remember anymore. Anyway, it's not there. It's in Las Terrenas, is very busy. And then we are again about 40 minutes from Las Terrenas. So as people start to discover these places, this will be the next beautiful area. And it already is for the people that know that it's there. So yes, that's one where we're putting together a co-ownership on that. That's a new venture for me where, like I said, I've got the vacation rentals in my own portfolio, but it is time for me to scale. I don't want to stop. And so I've reached pretty much my own personal ceiling to do these things on my own. And I am learning the value of partnering with people. And so we're putting together a co-ownership on this. What I found is that the beautiful thing about co-ownership is that people can, dramatically increase what they could buy for a vacation rental. If you had $500,000, you might be able to buy a vacation home that's maybe not very close to the water, maybe not ideal, might need some work. But if you went in with, 3 or 4 other people on $1 million property, you could have something, absolutely amazing. And so I'm starting to see the value of that. And so that's something that we're putting together on this. And hey, you get to have a resort overlooking the ocean and already operational. It's not a new development. It's been remodeled. In fact, this is also it came through that mastermind. I've been in that mastermind for 7 or 8 years. And I remember 3 years ago, one of the girls in the mastermind found this resort, this beautiful resort on the cliffs by the sea. And when she bought it, I have to tell you, I had to be honest, I was so jealous. I was like, wait a minute. That's my dream. I've been writing that in my journal for like the last 10 years. What do you mean? And what I came to realize was she was just getting it ready for me. So she took it over the last 3 years. She spent remodeling it and getting it fully operational. And now I just get to come in and take over. So dream realized.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, and seeing that's something too, guys. Like you'll hear DeAnna mention that, right? Like she's been writing this down. You can hear the visualization that was years in the making, right? I always encourage everybody that I come across now, like the power of like vision boards and, writing things down and like the visualization piece. It's one of those things, like I think when I first probably heard, it's hokey, like, whatever. Like, and it's like, no, you guys, like, it's very powerful. It's very real. You need to visualize where it is that you want to go, like see it in your mind's eye. Put it down, put it to paper, put pictures, clip them out, from a magazine or whatever, or take pictures, like real picture, whatever, put them on a vision board, put them on a goal board, write them down. And like that, I mean, DeAnna's seeing that come to pass now. Like, yeah, this is what I wanted. This is, we set this into motion years ago. And, and it was all working in the, behind the scenes. So yeah, that's awesome.
There really is power in putting pen to paper, right? Yeah. Even more so than, typing it in a computer or anything like that. Like there is definitely power in pen to paper. It's magnetic with the universe, right? Like it just brings it and it solidifies it in your brain too. This is something that I don't want to take credit for myself, but I do my gems. I call them gems every day. And that comes from Matthew Ferry. That is the mastermind that I'm in. And we write our gems every day, and I've done this for years, and it's just simple. It's gems, GEMS. It's your gratitudes, what experience you want to have every day, and what you're manifesting. And so starting every morning with being grateful, and it can be as simple as like, I'm grateful I got out of bed today, right? So writing what you're grateful for, always focusing on gratitude first, really just brings you back into flow and allows you to recognize the synchronicities, because miracles and synchronicities are happening all the time. But we get so busy in our day-to-day life that we forget to notice them. And so when we take that time and sit quietly with our journal and write down, what we're grateful for, what experience we want to have that day, then we start having that experience. We get to choose the experience of that day. And then also being said with the visualization, it all brings it together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So powerful. So powerful. So don't forget to do that. If nothing else, if you don't take anything else away from today's show, guys, take that away, right? The gratitude component, absolutely huge. Putting pen to paper, writing it down, making it plain, setting forth that vision into motion. You guys just don't realize like how powerful that is. I'm a living testament to that. DeAnna is also, and then you will find countless others that will attest to that as well. So no, that's huge.
And if this is your dream too, right? The co-ownership is open to anybody on this call, right? Reach out to me, because if this is something you've been thinking about or writing down or wanting to do, like, hey, this is happening right now in real time. So,
Yeah, for sure. We'll get to later on, like if there's a preferred way for, our listeners to reach out and they want to learn more, if they just want to connect with you, because they love your story and, they just want to know more about what you got going on, or who knows, maybe they are in those markets that you're in and, they're interested in kind of what you're doing, or, hey, I've always wanted to do a glamp site. Like, that's cool. I mean, you talk too, like, hey, whatever, right? Like there's plenty of people out there that can be inspired by us taking action. Right. So, and that's huge. Well, at this point of the show, I want to transition a little bit to what we call our fire round. And it's basically just kind of shorter answer. Don't need to be scared, but it's just, but
I got nervous. I was like, oh.
Is that something you're game for?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. All right. So what is the best book that you'd recommend other than Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Everybody recommends the Real Estate Bible there, but if you've got another book recommendation, we'd love to hear it.
Living in Flow. That would be, Living in Flow.
All right. Awesome. I don't know that I've heard that one before. Maybe, but
I was trying to think of things that would be of value to people that really is in line with real estate, because it is the synchronicities. It's recognizing those synchronicities and focusing your intention to actually have these things come to fruition.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. What's your superpower?
Oh, that's a funny question. Oh my gosh. So I asked my son what my superpower is, and you know what it's always been? For me, it's always been I'm invisible. And I'm transitioning that, because that's not actually a superpower, right? But that's what I always said, is that I'm invisible because I am introverted. And so things like this are me breaking out of that. So I'm transitioning my superpower to really communicating with people, right? Yes, communication is key. I love interacting with people. One-on-one is easier for me, going to those networking events. So maybe this is for people on the call that are terrified of networking. Oh my gosh, me too. Like if I have to go to a group of 100 people, like I just had to, even on this podcast, I had to pretend like this is just a conversation between you and me, because I have always said my superpower is I'm invisible. I can hide in the corner, nobody sees me, but that's not how you make things happen, right? And so I have so I know these are short answers, but I can't do it. So The Gift is written by Matthew Ferry and Kristen Marie Skierling and Thatch Wynn. And that helps with networking, especially if you're an introvert, especially if those things are very hard for you, because it takes the focus off of me and puts it on other people, finding out what they're up to, being interested in what they're up to, and finding how we can contribute. Once you take the focus off of talking about yourself and finding out what other people are up to, that's where the magic happens. So I haven't figured out how to put that superpower into words, but I'm shifting it from invisible to maybe giving the gift.
No, it's funny that you say that you're an introvert. I can tell that you're not. You're just not used to putting yourself in situations that would throw yourself out there. But you're obviously bold. I'd say that's probably your superpower here, like stepping out and doing bold, things. So doing it scared, right? Like that's the thing.
Yes, doing it scared. There you go.
Yeah. All right. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career so far?
the biggest lesson I've learned over my career. I really do think that it is, we talked about it already, but joining a mastermind, having those mentors. I started acquiring these properties through the BRRRR method, the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, right? That's how I acquired my vacation rentals to get started. But I learned how to do it from watching YouTube videos, from watching podcasts, from just watching what I could learn on the internet. And I never signed up for any sort of coaching. The biggest problem and the biggest mistake with that was that my margins were not big enough, right? And so I got myself into some trouble. I got myself out because real estate's really good at getting us out of trouble too. But I got myself into six figures more of credit card debt, because the one thing that I didn't learn was, yes, this is a great project. This is a great rehab. This is a great long-term rental. I didn't realize that in those numbers, I needed to pay myself back for the rehab. And that seems like such a small thing, but I missed it because I didn't have a coach. I didn't have a mentor. I was just watching videos. And then suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, I'm $125,000 in credit card debt. I have 5 rental properties, but now I have to sell one of these in order to pay off the credit card debt. Like, this feels like a hamster wheel from hell. Is this really how I'm supposed to be doing it? So that would be like my biggest mistake. And what I learned is, get a coach, join a mastermind, surround yourself with people that are already doing it, and be willing to learn from them. Don't ever say, I'd really try not to ever say, I already know that, because even if I already know a lot about that, there could be something that I didn't know.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I tell people, it's like, well, I get scared. I get scared when somebody tells me, oh yeah, I know it all. Oh, I've done it all. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, sure. That means you're closed off to learning, and that's dangerous. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, next question and you can kind of, because some of this I feel like you just answered with the previous one, but for the busy working professional, that's trying to work towards financial freedom, what advice would you have for them?
I would say work on your mindset, really. Especially if you're busy, right? You've got to take the time to take care of yourself. If you can take, however it is, whether it's, for me, it's barefoot in the grass, walking in a cold stream, right? Something that takes me away from the busyness of life, and working on quieting your mind, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, sitting there with your gems, sitting there with your journal, just visioning. Take the time to take care of yourself and your mind and quiet that mind chatter, so that when you are in the busy world, you can slow everything down and kind of just see everything happening around you, but you don't have to get as caught up in the craziness.
Yeah. No, I know that's great advice. It really is. I mean, mindset's been huge for me personally. And I think for most people, it's the same thing, right? It's like, there's some kind of mental block, right? And so for most of us, in terms of leveling up. And so, yeah, the more that you can do to develop our mind, that's usually the biggest benefit, I think. So yeah, no, that's great. That's a great answer. Well, like I said, if our audience does want to reach out to you, they want to learn more about your deal, they want to learn more about, the different project that you've taken on, or they just want to, reach out and kind of get to know you a little bit better. Kind of, what's the best avenues to do that? Socials, email, whatever you want to, give to them. Website.
Yeah, I'm happy to share any of my information. So my website is destinationdreamhomes.com. So that's very easy. There's a chat button you can put in there, and I get the message immediately. I have a really quick response time too on that. So that's important, right? Social media is great. You can reach out to me, direct message me. It's Destination Dream Homes with underscore in between each. So destination_dream_homes on Instagram. And, but you could just email me too. It's my name, DeAnna Lee at destinationdreamhomes.com. You can call me. I don't know if I should put my phone number out here on this, but I'm happy to, if that's
okay. They can reach out
me. That's no big deal. Reach out those other way. Yeah. Okay. The other routes work. I'm a realtor, so then everything, none of our stuff is private, so I don't mind.
Okay, that's true. Right on. Awesome. Well, DeAnna, thanks so much for coming on with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and for you kind of sharing your story, your experience with our listeners. I know I've gotten a lot from it, and I know that the listeners have too. So I think there's more of this in your future. So I'm gonna
awesome.
I'm gonna speak that. But thanks again so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and best of success to you in your future. And enjoy the rest of your trip while you're visiting here in Hawaii, visiting your property, and enjoy your time. So,
Thank you. Yes, thanks for having me on. Aloha. It's been great.
awesome. Aloha. Well, have a great one. Aloha. Oh man, what an amazing interview with DeAnna. Just got such a great story, great energy too, but just super encouraging, to have her come on and share with us, her story, her background, overcoming kind of those limiting beliefs and barriers, right? Like, I mean, she's a single mom when she started, right? She experienced flooding in her house, that easily could have these are several like life-changing things that can happen that for some people, hey, you know what, that changes the course negatively for decades to come. But she used those as spring points, as launching pads to go into the next stage, right? The next iteration of her career, her business. And now that's launched her into, having, all of these properties, a sizable portfolio, like I mentioned earlier, internationally and domestically, right? Now she gets to travel, she gets to create opportunities for other people to provide value to so many people, in not only the local workers, but also to their guests that are visiting. So great story. And of course, reach out to her if you guys are interested in the project that she's got working, or even just to connect with her. I know she's got some speaking event coming up there locally in Utah, so make sure you connect with her. And if you guys are interested in investing with us, of course, any of the projects that we've got going on, we've got some stuff coming up shortly as well. So go to tricityequity.com. You can definitely learn more. You can connect with several of our GPs there, set up a time where we'd love to have a conversation with you, to connect with local like-minded investors. Join our Facebook group, Honolulu Multifamily and more. Even if you're not local, it's a great way to connect with people who are like-minded, who want to, succeed, who want to experience growth in their real estate portfolio and just in their mindset. Of course, if you guys found value in the podcast, make sure that you're subscribing, make sure that you're sharing the show. We'd love to be able to continue to grow the channel so that more listeners can experience, some of these people that we have on, these great guests that we have on. We do have we have the conference coming up. By the time you're listening to this, it's maybe coming up very, very shortly, June 29th to July 1st, the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference. Of course, this is the second annual one. Last year's event was such a great success. We got so much great feedback off of the event. So many great business owners, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, you name it. It's such a great place to network. Anytime you go out to any type of event like this, just to connect. Again, it's about the mindset. If your mindset's not right and you're not surrounded by people who have the mindset of growth and increase, you're just not going to, it's going to be stifling, right? So make sure that you're connecting with other people who have that growth mindset, who want to get better, who want to learn how to better themselves. And this is a great way to be able to do it. This is going to be over also on the Big Island on Manalani, the Manalani Resort. So it's an amazing place. If you guys have never had a chance to visit Hawaii, this is an outstanding opportunity to do it. I know rooms are getting really low. We do have a room block there at the resort. So make sure that you're checking out the conference. And so that's going to be an awesome time to learn about more. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it today. We're going to go ahead and sign off, and we look forward to checking in with you guys in the next episode. And go out and take some action. Have a blessed one. Aloha.